I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And as everyone knows, I am a big fan of Whiplash. So, of course, I have to have Debbie and Matt and Jason here to talk about Whiplash. So, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having
Hi.
us.
Hello, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We're now into probably double the number of episodes that I've had since the last time that I had you on the show. So I'm happy to get a chance to have you back on and talk about this season for World Championship 7. So, it's definitely been an interesting season for Whiplash. And we'll kind of go back and talk about all of that because obviously it got better from what the beginning of the season looked like. You started things off against Mad Catter, which is to me always a difficult robot to fight because Calvin is such a good driver. Obviously Matt, you are as well, so it's just a very good driving battle there. But it was a really tough fight and you ended up losing that one. Now did that, talk about the match, of course, first of all, but did that give you any concern for, how things were going to go for the rest of the season to start off that way?
I don't think it really concerned me how the rest of the season was going to go. I knew we were going into that fight, not 100%. I knew that going in. We had drivetrain parts that hadn't even arrived yet. And we were just kind of running test prototype parts on the robot still. We tried out a new wedgelet plan just kind of to see what would happen. It didn't really work out so well. And the spinner never spun up. So we were running on 25 or no, maybe 50% of the robot's potential. So I don't think the loss, it didn't really have to do with driving so much. We kind of were just going head to head for most of the fight. So no one really got the advantage there. It was mostly just they hit us once and that's all they really had to do. And once they got that first hit on us, we were pretty disabled at that point. So they just got that one shot behind us right into the wall. So it was we were kind of lucky to get into that fight. But then after that, we saw the robot was just totally destroyed. So not only did we have to improve the things that didn't work before that fight, we had to fix literally everything else because everything was damaged after that fight. We brought 2 chassis. The first chassis scrapped after that first fight. It was we were really just a sitting duck in that one and they took full advantage. So then that leads us to the Hypershock match where we were just panic repairing, the whole, I don't know, it was a day and a half, and maybe 2 days
there then at that point because we were super shorthanded.
But relative to normal seasons, it was kind of the same. It was really the same. The only difference was that we just took so much more damage than usual. We normally only have 2 or 3 people. The season before, we had 1 extra person, but we had a whole other robot. So having the amount of people wasn't really the problem. It was just we took so much more damage than we normally take first round.
And we probably showed up with less spares than usual just because we were trying so many new things at the same time. So that's also a big hiccup that we ran into when rebuilding after that brutal fight. So
yeah, definitely. And like you kind of alluded to going into the Hypershock match, and I think we definitely saw a lot of the berserker kind of Will Bales driving in the Golden Bolt tournament last year. And I think that he brought it back for World Championship 7. It was such a good fight, I thought. But it's I think when you're facing a robot and he was able to do what he wanted to do, then it's kind of tough to combat that.
That fight in my obviously the outcome was not good for us, but I thought the fight itself obviously it went much better than the Mad Catter fight for sure. The robot just worked much better. We had the drivetrain parts I said that hadn't arrived for the Mad Catter fight. They arrived for this fight, so the drive worked great. We were able to take a couple hits and the drive was pretty resilient. We got a lift on him in the very beginning of the fight and he was upside down for a good however long. So I think the strategy for that fight was get him flipped over immediately and then while they're upside down, attack their belly pan with the spinner over the back. So in the very beginning of the fight, I get them flipped over immediately. They're upside down for a good while, and I'm like, the spinner's not working. Like, okay, like this is really frustrating because like I had the strategy, it's going exactly how we planned it. It's just the spinner's not working. So we kind of just had to drive around and try to keep them upside down. And then once they self-righted, you know, kind of like Mad Catter, they only need a few really good hits to, you know, to end the match.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think that shows, like, to me, I thought that Whiplash just performed progressively better as the season went on, like with every single match. So, you know, yeah, it was a really awesome fight. And there was a lot of good things to take away from that one.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like it was you know, believe it or not, I was like pretty happy after that match, just considering like how much better things worked from the first fight. And at this point, all that really matters is making it into the tournament. Like that's really all that matters. Like even though we're 0-2, like I look at our first two opponents were kind of worst case scenario for us. Like if you look at our win-loss record is pretty good, but almost all of our losses are against four-wheeled vertical spinners. Other than like a Tombstone and Sawblaze, all of them four-wheeled verts. So like our first two matches being against four-wheeled verts, we were like, okay, like these are two very good four-wheeled vertical spinners. That is, you know, the scissors to our paper. Like it's gonna be an uphill battle no matter what. So considering how much better we did in the Hypershock fight, I was pretty happy. It was just a matter of like, we got to fix this and win at least one fight. And if we only have one win, it's got to be a convincing win because we just got to get our foot in the door. Like that's all that really matters. Yeah.
Yeah, we had openings against Hypershock, and basically, you know, everything being equal, we could have beat them, but you know, I was just saying, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. But no,
we won, but we didn't.
It was better to be 0-2.
Yeah.
We had him right where we wanted him.
That was the plan the whole time.
Will and his family.
Yeah,
So we have to give him that one.
Yeah, he's a good friend. I mean, he did knock the battery out of the robot, so we wouldn't burn up. So it was good. It burned up in the arena, not in our robot. So that was nice of him. So he's a giver. But no, it was good, and it was a tough first couple of fights, and it was a worst case scenario. I always thought, you know, the BattleBot guys liked us, and I'm going, what did we do to them? I mean, when I saw the draw, it was like, holy moly. So,
but who knows, we might meet up with them later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like really though, I thought that so many of the fights were, as far as like the schedule, was really well thought out. I thought a lot of bots were given just like a really good challenge for them. So I think that made for a really good season. And, you know, the really interesting thing, because, you know, you said about trying to make the tournament. For me, I always thought that it was a given that at least a few of the 1 and 3 bots would end up making it in, because this field is so good and the quality of matches are so good, even the ones that are losses, that, you know, that was probably inevitable. But, you know, obviously you want to give yourself the best chance that you can going into it.
Yeah, I thought the matchmaking was pretty fantastic. Like I thought everyone's 4 matches made perfect sense. They made for great fights. It was all tough matchups. Like I really have no complaints even about our lineup. Like I really have none, because I would rather fight those people in the fight cards and lose to them and like learn something. Like maybe if you are a mid to lower tier robot, like, and you get, you know, 4 very tough fights, you're going to be genuinely worried about not making the tournament. I was less worried about not making the tournament and just more happy with the fact that we would fight all these really tough opponents. And I knew our chances of making the tournament were pretty darn good, even if we were to, you know, have one not so convincing win and one convincing win. Like that, I was pretty confident something like that can get us in. So I was pretty happy getting those tough opponents, to be honest.
And I think Paul Jeffries had a say in the matchups this year as the steward, right?
Yeah,
I think he was kind of I think that was part of his job description, was to kind of come in and make sure that it was all dealt fairly, that everybody kind of had a little bit of a even draw. So yeah, it was nice having him there this year. I thought that was a nice addition to everything.
But Aaron is a wizard. putting matches together. He never ceases to amaze me, seriously. I mean, he's really good at that, and figuring out how people are gonna place even the upsets, where you can't, you go, there's no way that's gonna work out, and it does, and it's just like crazy. So he's amazing.
Yes, for sure. He's definitely someone I'd love to have on the show just to pick his brain.
That would be good. I would watch that. That would be funny. That would be something.
Yes. So then the next match, which for me was like about as close of a match as you could possibly have against Monsoon. I mean, I thought it was just great. And honestly, like when you look at things in hindsight, the fact that they just walloped Cobalt should make you feel like extra good about getting that win, because that is a tough bot.
That was a great fight.
Yeah, no, their performance against Cobalt was awesome. And it does make us feel good about getting the win against them. But at the same time, BattleBots is rock, paper, scissors. So like that doesn't mean we're a better robot than Cobalt. Like just because they beat Cobalt and we beat them. So it's BattleBots is really a big game of rock, paper, scissors. And like we were on paper maybe a tougher opponent for Monsoon than Cobalt, just because the type of robot we are. Whereas maybe Cobalt's tougher for us than Monsoon is for us. So but yeah, that was a really, really fun fight against Monsoon. Like I said before, like our trajectory was going in the right direction throughout the fight card matches. Mad Catter, terrible. Hypershock was much better than Monsoon. Like we finally, obviously the spinner still didn't really work. We had some little problems here and there in that fight, but the drivetrain was reliable, the lifter was reliable. We took a bunch of punches to the face and kept going. So that was really great. That was we were very happy with that match. It was a really great fight.
Yes, and it was difficult for me to watch as a fan, because anytime that I'm watching two teams of people where they're just like, these people are all some of the best people in the sport and they're going against each other and I want them both to win. So
we felt the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. And when we were up there, I had, I felt good about the fight in the beginning, towards the end, and going, you know what? I see all the worst things and the problems and everything. And that kind of, it weighs on me more than the great hits that, and the awesome driving of Matt and everything. So I was actually worried. And, to be perfectly honest, I was happy they challenged us.
We
challenged it. Yeah, we actually said, if you read lips, you can see challenge it. We told them to.
Appeal.
Yeah, appeal. Yeah.
We definitely weren't confident that we had won that after the fact. It was definitely all like a blur. Like definitely didn't remember it right after the fact. And
it was like the type of thing, like after the fight, like I kind of always think I did worse than I actually did. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like this is a toss up. And then we kind of like watched the video afterwards, and I was like, okay, like I kind of see why we won this fight now.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I was like, maybe not so worried about the appeal. I mean, but the appeal is also stressful. Like even if you do think that it won't be overturned, like you're like, okay, for this reason, and this reason, we should win, or we should keep our win. Like you just don't know until they tell you. And we waited a pretty long time.
Yeah,
I think it was like our fight was morning session, and we didn't know till like later that night. So there was a good, I don't know, 8-10 hours of us waiting for the decision, which was a little bit stressful.
And they filmed it all, and it was the whole thing. So yeah. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Jay.
I haven't seen you in a long time. Come home.
And then another interesting thing with the fight was that the blade stopped. It was working like not even like half the time, but it did work at the very end, which I think definitely helped us out in the judges' eyes, just because it did show full functionality. And it definitely was dead in the middle because I was controlling the blade finally. So I was in charge of spinning it up during the fight, and it still was struggling, like I was saying. But it just kind of came back to life halfway through the fight, which was really, really fortunate for us. And at that point, we really didn't know what the problem was.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that's probably what got us the win. Like because like there was, towards the end of the fight, like half of our drive started locking up, and we were kind of crab walking a little bit. But like at the very end of the fight, I was just like, okay, like I'm just gonna show as much movement as I can to kind of show the judges like we are still in control of our robot, we still have all of our capabilities. And like I just kind of drove around, spun in place. The drive, happened to unlock for this, like magically unlocked so I can do this, which I was very happy about. So we just kind of drove around, spun in a circle, lifted the arm, spun up the disc. And I think the judges probably saw that and were like, okay, like Whiplash has functionality, like they were struggling, but clearly they still work. So that's probably what sealed the deal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, then you move on from that match and get into another very challenging situation, going up against Tantrum in a situation where you both only have one win, and one of those bots is going to end up 1-3. That had to be tough, not only that, but like knowing that you're going up against the prior champion from the prior season, and they're going to bring everything. What was your strategy, and how did you feel about that fight?
So to be honest, like for pretty much all the fight card rounds, like considering how much, like in our first 3 fights, we took significant damage in all three of those fights. We had a lot of damage. We were in survival mode. I didn't care who we were fighting. I didn't care about strategy. I didn't care if we were fighting the reigning champion. I was just like, let's just get the robot working. We'll throw it in the arena and we will do our best. Like I was not thinking about that at all. It was just get the robot running. But on paper, Tantrum is a pretty decent matchup for us. Just considering, like I said before, like all of our losses have been against big spinners for the most part, especially 4-wheel verts and then Tombstone and Sawblaze. Whereas Tantrum is more of a control robot, and we have done pretty darn well against other control robots. Clearly, Tantrum is one of the best control robots because they were the champion. So, it's not going to be easy for sure. But on paper, it is a decent matchup for us.
Yeah.
If our opponent is not capable of doing major damage to us, normally we do pretty well. Tantrum is good at getting like little sneaky parts of your robot and bending your belly pan or hitting somewhere where you don't expect. But we have decent ground clearance, so if they do get some little nick on the bottom, we should still be able to move. There was one point they got a punch on one of our tires just kind of absorbed it. So it was, on paper, it was a pretty good matchup for us in our opinion. And we did get a little bit lucky, and when we pushed them into the wall, they don't have a chain guard on their self-rider, so we kind of jammed their self-rider chain into the wall and broke the chain. And funny enough,
they gave it to us as like the gift after the fight, so pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the self-rider chain. But that's the chain right there. But funny enough, like I pushed them into the wall. I have no idea I broke their self-rider. It's just such a small thing. There's no way I can know that. But I pushed them in the wall. I tried to lift. Our lifter's not working. Like the lifter, there was something very wrong with it. Like I could move the arm up and down, but we did not have enough torque to lift Tantrum. So I ended up being wrong. It's just the motor and the gearbox. There's a little shaft collar that connects the motor to the gearbox. And it was literally just one loose screw that, from being able to lift like 500 pounds normally, we probably could have lifted like 100 pounds at that point. So we couldn't lift Tantrum. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep driving forward. We hit him with our spinner and knocked him over. So once we did that, they weren't self-riding. I was just like, okay, like we got a little bit lucky, but we'll take it because we've had some pretty crap luck really thus far. But and it's had they flipped us over first, I don't know if we would have been able to self-ride, to be perfectly honest. So I'm glad we won when we did, and
we got lucky.
Take it.
I mean, we earned it, but you need to have a little bit of luck. And because we had worked so hard just to, like Matt says, to get the robot even in the arena. And
thank God that, because our first 3 fights, the spinner didn't work. Like Monsoon, it kind of spun a little bit, but it did not work. Tantrum was the first fight our spinner worked, and thank God it did, because our lifter wasn't working.
Not only did it work, it was the thing that actually flipped them over and knocked them out. Like that, it rarely ever flips over full heavyweights, and that was the perfect time for it to make it stipple.
That was definitely the hardest our spinners ever hit, and in the perfect amount of timing. Like just considering like our lifter didn't work and our spinner won that fight, which is something that never happens, just kind of shows like how thin of ice we were on for all those fight card rounds. Like just barely getting things ready in time, just being barely prepared enough. So
Yes. So ended up finishing 2-2, which, I wouldn't say like, there obviously are 2-2 teams that didn't make the round of 32, but I mean, I think based on the strength of schedule and like the ability of your robot, that puts you solidly in the round of 32, which it did. And you ended up drawing Beta in the first round, which, obviously like John Reed is an amazing builder and all of that. The match was one of the shortest matches that I've ever seen. And I mean, I would love to obviously ask him about going with that particular armor package, because I would say that is definitely less successful for them than using their other armor package. I don't know if that had anything to do with, how the match ended up playing out, but, despite it being short, like, tell me about, from your perspective, what went down in that one.
So it's funny. I do see lots of comments about people saying like, why does John use that armor? Like, it makes no sense. He doesn't win fights with it. Well, to be perfectly honest, like, I was kind of hoping he would use his big wide wedge that he uses to fight horizontals. I think strategically he made with the two configurations he had, he chose the right one for sure. I really wanted him to use that plow, because all we need, if he runs that plow, we just need 2 forks up front. We're going to get perfect engagement on it with our spinner every single time if he runs that plow. All we have to do is face him. Do what Endgame did to us in the finals in 2020. Just face him, drive into him. We will catch the edge of that plow every single time. So the quote-unquote boat armor is what I call it, and I think some other people have. We're never going to grab a good edge of that. Right. We will always just grind on it. If he has that, we will never damage his armor. So when he runs that armor, he basically turns it into a pure lifter versus pure hammer fight. Where our spinner won't do any damage. He's not going to control us. But so it's hammer on lifter at that point, unless we get to the back, which kind of is what ended up happening. But I do see why he used that armor. If I was him, I probably would have done the same thing, maybe. So yeah, it's he's not just totally like, making terrible decisions, like not thinking anything through. He's
well thought out, and he considers all the possibilities, and he's a great guy. He's brilliant, and really, he's a gentleman in the sport, and we really respect him and like him, and he thought it out. I mean, and they got a couple shots on us. I mean, if one of them
was right on
our weapon motor, wasn't it?
Yeah, hit the guard on.
Yeah, we had a guard, and it dented. Yeah, pretty close to the motor. So that was it.
And like when people say like, oh, he's like whatever 1 in 9 or something with that boat armor configuration, is like, well, he only brings it out when he fights the really tough vertical spinners. Guess what's the most dominant design type in BattleBots history? Vertical spinner. So like I don't know what people expect really from.
It's like
why?
Yeah, when people complained we were running the plow and no spinner because we had every fight was a horizontal, and it worked. What are we going to do? I mean, we like running the mixed configuration, the combination, but you
no matter
can't
what you
do that.
Somebody is gonna complain.
But I think my favorite thing about fighting a Beta was like the fact that John Reed's been like since like original Robot Wars, like he's been in it forever, as long as anyone else. So we fought like Bronco, and we fought Christian Karlberg, we fought Donald Hudson, we fought like everyone from like the original era of BattleBots except for him. I think him and Jim Smitowski were like the only ones we hadn't fought.
I thought Jimmy killed me back in Comedy Central days.
But I was pretty happy to fight John Reed and just kind of like add that to the list of he almost finished off the list of original builders who got in a fight. So that was pretty cool fighting him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Beta had a great season. So I think that he has a lot of positive things to take away from it. But that helped you advance to the next round, obviously, versus Hydra. Now, the interesting thing about that is that you have faced and beat Hydra in the past, and I think that Hydra, like, as far as opponents go, I've always considered Whiplash to be a really big challenge for Hydra, both from a driving perspective and also just, I think, from a bot design perspective, that it's one of the few bots that I think could counter what Jake's really good at. So, let's talk about that and how things actually went for this one.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the first time we fought Hydra was like a super close judge's decision. That's the fight that, got us into the semifinals. And that was our biggest win of 2020 for sure. And like probably one of our top 3, top 5 wins ever.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It's on the map.
Yeah, well, yeah. But yeah, so in that fight, like obviously Hydra wasn't working like perfectly the first time we fought him, and we just kind of took advantage of every opportunity we had and took advantage just enough to barely get that decision. And this time, Hydra, he was definitely on his game for sure before this fight. Like he's especially that death roll fight, like those were some of the most incredible flips I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, death roll scraped the rafters for sure.
Yeah.
So that's a 16-foot flip right there, and that's pretty impressive.
250 pounds straight up. That's just insane.
But yeah, so I mean, obviously fighting against Hydra, ground game is very important. So the beginning was kind of just testing the waters, trying to get underneath. We got under him a couple times, he got under us a couple times, but at one point he got a flip right underneath our lifting arm. So normally when he flips underneath the body of the robot, it's not a big deal. We land, we self-right. But he got a flip underneath the arm. So he back drove the arm at probably, 200 something miles an hour, however fast the tip of his flipper is moving. And that broke some keyways in the arm. When we were upside down, we couldn't self-right because he broke the arm by flipping directly underneath it. So, it's kind of a perfect shot on his part.
Yeah.
And it just kind of lets us know there are some mechanical improvements to be made.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have one keyway, 1/4-inch hardened steel keyway. We had 2 hardened steel 1/4-inch keyways in titanium shaft with the steel sprocket, and it sheared the keyways.
In my opinion, I kind of thought that would happen if you flipped us there, if I'm totally honest. I don't think that's
I mean, something had to fail. The robot wasn't just gonna like take that and be fine. At least how it was. It could in the future.
Yeah, but you
we knew that was something to watch out for.
I don't know.
Same outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. If a vertical hits us right on the bottom of the lifter, it's going to get back driven, and that's not too good. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was. We saw it coming right when I saw he flipped us there. I knew it was kind of going to be downhill.
I thought
especially that early on in the fight.
Yeah, but I think all in all, like this season, we made so many changes.
Yeah.
And like learned so much, and we like grinded so much in the pits, probably more than any other season
by far.
We learned quite a bit, and we really did change a lot with our robot. We changed almost everything. Really.
Every system.
Like the drivetrain, totally different. Chassis was different. We went all brushless all at once, which was maybe a mistake, but I really don't think so. I think everyone who does that has a season or 2 of teething issues, and I think this was our season of teething issues. I would hope. But yeah, I think it's kind of the type of thing like you have to evolve your robot, even if it means you're gonna have trouble for a season or 2.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, your robot might work well, but it'll be very good at being a bad robot. we would rather have a robot with a lot of potential and have some issues than have a robot that works well and is just not competitive.
We want to win and lose on our terms. And
I mean, when we've done the best, we actually were just like kind of going more consistent route versus more like experimental, like top end game, which is pretty interesting. And then also I kind of find it funny, Matthew was saying how we upgraded every system and made it like entirely new, except for the lifter, because the lifter was previously like our most reliable like aspect of the robot. So we kind of just figured like, oh, that's good. We're not going to change that. We can leave one thing. And then of course, now that's the thing we're talking about upgrades for. Yeah. So it just kind of goes to show like how much the competition's improving and just how a robot can't stay for like more than 5 years without needing some legitimate upgrades, except for maybe Hydra, because that looks pretty much the same.
Well, I mean,
at least for us.
They've done a lot of, remember their drive used to burn out every 30 seconds and I mean they had tons of issues. Hydraulic pumps.
Yeah, they had issues in our first fight.
Yeah. So there's an ebb and flow to every robot team. And if your ebb is when someone else is flowing, then you're gonna have problems. So this was our low time. And I mean, it was amazing how many things went wrong. We had things running perfect and we put it in the arena and it won't go, the weapon especially. And all our opponents helped us. from Mad Catter helped us, guys from their team, and from Hypershock helped us before the fights. They were helping us for hours. We probably had 20 hours of other teams helping us with our brushless system. And
Rory from Monsoon.
Rory from Monsoon, big, you know,
And
and,
guys from
and
Tantrum too.
Tantrum, yeah, David from Tantrum. I mean,
So everyone fought.
and everyone's going, you know, what's going on? You know, no one got it. And everyone had a little bit of an issue, I think, with certain parts of the, you know, the ESC setups, but you know, hopefully that's behind us now. We're on a road, I believe, where we can improve on what we have, and it should be pretty dependable.
Yeah.
Because when it works pretty well.
But the first few fights, it took a village.
Yeah, it really did.
Yes, the wonderful robotic community coming together to make
Yeah.
great fights happen, which is amazing. And I mean, honestly, like, you know, with the, you know, everything with Hydra, you know, to me, I always say that, like, if you're going to go out, you know, go out against somebody who's really at the top of their game. And I mean, Jake has just been lights out this season, aside from that Tantrum fight. So it was going to be tough, I think, no matter who he faced.
Yeah. And you know, Jake was smart. Like for you know, in the fight card round, specifically in the Tantrum one, he tried a new wedgelet setup that he'd never tried before. He tried these like fancy spring-loaded wedgelets that you know, hopefully he could drive better over seams against Tantrum. He realized very fast they worked terribly against Tantrum, and Tantrum scooped right underneath him and, you know, kicked his butt. So after that fight, Jake learned, he's like, okay, we're not running that anymore. We're going to go back to our other wedgelets. And, you know, so far, so good. So Jake was smart. You know, he experimented in the fight cards. Maybe he did it in a more of a high stakes fight than he should have. but yeah, he was smart, and now Hydra's running great. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with you know, the season, you know, this part of the season over and stuff like that, you know, what is the team working on in the meantime? I assume, at least in some capacity, possibly getting ready for World Championship 8 whenever that happens.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Like we went to RoboGames, you know, was that a month ago now, a few weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. We you know, tested some stuff. I learned some things that I was maybe going to try that will not work. So a couple lessons learned there. But yeah, just designing new Whiplash at this point. Haven't made any, you know, physical parts yet, but it's getting to that point soon.
Yeah.
So you know, we don't know when the next season will be, but you kind of just gotta start regardless and just get building.
Yeah. And then Jason brought King Crab to RoboGames.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
very fun.
So
Good to see them.
rebranding Defender felt nice, but yeah, it was a pretty good run with that. I was happy it got to come back in one part. I got to bring it up to my school club that I just started combat robotics at, and I got to show them all heavyweights and kind of give them a tour of RoboGames. So that felt good.
and thank you, NHRL.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah, we got the NHRL grant through a club at my school, so we got that money to start up that club, and that's what really allowed all those students to come out to RoboGames and gave us the opportunity to like kind of grow another team, which was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the redesign. I thought it was great. So yeah, I mean, that could be interesting for the future there as well.
That's a bummer he didn't get to use the flamethrower though, because he had that dialed in. That
Yeah.
thanks to Calvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer we didn't get to run the flamethrower, and it was an entirely new front. It honestly wasn't that different from the old version of Defender. Like all the internals and like the power was all the same. But I mean, it's a cool robot. I like it. I don't think it's ever going to be like the most competitive, but it's nice to just have it kind of like around.
Tough.
It could
I
be
like we don't have to repair it that much. It's tough.
True.
And look at
Yeah.
Claw Viper this year was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would it'd be nice to upgrade that solid brushless, but right now it's using
Yeah.
all of like, the leftover motors from the old Whiplash. So it's kind of like if I do an upgrade, I have to entirely rebuild it, and then that's not taking advantage of the robot still like working pretty good. So
yeah,
it's kind of a lot of work for probably less success compared to Whiplash. So I'm kind of going back and forth on it, but I still really like the robot.
I want to get a king crab and Whiplash fight out at the live show at Destructathon.
Hey, I mean, I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
Sorry, you go, Jay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We almost grudge matched on the last day of RoboGames, but we were just so tired at that point. It just wasn't really in the cards.
I actually thought it'd be more fun being we have multiple Whiplash at Destructathon to do like an exhibition match with Jason and Matthew, each fighting a Whiplash against each other.
That would be fun.
Yeah, we've done it with the toys, so it'd be like the same thing, just bigger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the toys
Exactly.
work better. So-
No,
Toys are so good.
they are
Anyway,
good.
Yeah. So
Yes. And so another thing that I want to make sure that I do, because I've been doing that on every show for a little while here, is please feel free to shout out to your sponsors, because they are a big part of this whole thing.
That would probably be my
Yes, here you
go.
my duty. We'd love to thank Meggitt Aerospace. That's where Jeff had worked for the last 10 years. They've been wonderful and their support has been amazing. You can see.
yeah.
Go Engineer, I just absolutely love. They've been our sponsor pretty much since the beginning. And Matthew and Jason, they started off doing CAD like at their kids camp when they were really little, like over the summer. And then part of our sponsorship with us was that every summer they would get private CAD training. So that was amazing. They've been so wonderful and supportive. Max Amps has been there forever. Best
Totally.
batteries ever.
Really good. And they've been really great customer service.
Yeah.
And they've been very helpful with a lot of things. So yeah.
Yeah, our newest sponsor, AlertBot, also so fun and amazing. They two of the reps came out to filming and they were just so much fun. Front row in the audience with their Whiplash shirts on.
It was great.
And they're fans of the show to begin with. So when they reached out to us. I was like, absolutely. So they're wonderful. And then I don't want to leave out Zometry. We had the previous year sponsorship with Big Blue Saw, which was wonderful. Great customer service. I mean, the turnaround on getting all of our water jet stuff back was just crazy. Everything was absolutely on point. And it was a really smooth transition to Zometry. So we're honored to be sponsored by them too. So thanks for the opportunity to give a shout out to leave anybody out. Cheat sheet.
It's always helpful when you wear the merch because then everything is right there for you. So
but yeah, they've all been amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Without them.
We couldn't do it without them. So
yes, and that is why I have started adding this feature to the shows because it is very important.
It's either we pay Jason's college tuition or we build a BattleBot. So I mean, seriously, it's what it comes down to. I mean, it's
Yes, exactly.
Thank God for sponsors and
For
Jason's
sure.
education.
Yes, that is also super important.
Yes.
No, awesome. Well, I mean, obviously, like I think that fans hope to see what Whiplash is going to come back with, and I think that people may find it difficult to like understand the whole like making these changes and testing things out, and but I think that it's so important to do that because as everybody says, you can't really know how a robot's going to perform unless you fight it, and so a lot of these things are learnings, and you kind of have to take away from that and put that into whatever you do next.
And the bottom line is the only way you can really test a BattleBot is in the battle box against another robot. It doesn't matter what else you do to it. You can drive it off the roof, run a car over it, do whatever, shoot it, do whatever you want. It's not the battle box, and it's not another robot hitting it or dropping it from 16 feet onto a hard steel floor. there's just no other way to do it, and that's hard to deal with. And even spinning up a weapon motor, I mean, how would you do that safely? You really very tough to do.
Well, I
And
think
if
that's what Greg and Trey are trying to do with Proving Grounds.
yeah,
Is if people
Yeah.
could make it out there, they have
Yeah.
an arena and they can test.
yeah.
So
So I hope we can take advantage of that sometime. But yeah, it's tough to do that, and you know, the robots have to evolve. Every pound we save in batteries, we can add to the armor. You know, so Sawblaze can't get through the top next time. You know, hopefully, you know, that's what it comes down to. So.
Yeah, and actually, like, just speaking of Proving Grounds, I wanted to ask one last question, because, you know, I'm just curious about this. You know, sometimes, especially when you've been doing this a while, you find that things come full circle, because when you build your first robot, you have robots that you're inspired by. And this season, we had, you know, an alternate, or I guess whatever BattleBots wants to call it, which was Terror Tops, and they were heavily inspired by Whiplash. How
Yeah.
does that feel to have somebody that has watched the show and like want to build a robot that's inspired by your robot?
Yeah,
Awesome.
that was pretty
Great.
cool, because like
Yeah.
because I remember like before the season, like I got, you know, a couple messages from Ben, I think, like asking about like our arms, like UHMW arms and stuff like that. So like I kind of knew like what the robot would be, but I didn't really know a whole lot about them. And they just happened to be our pit neighbors, like right next to us. And like we look inside the robot, like, oh, this is really cool. This is like a totally different take on what we're doing, kind of.
Yeah,
But it's very similar in lots of ways, but also very different in lots of ways.
it's you know,
Yeah.
it's legit, and they couldn't be a nicer team.
yeah, they're really
They're
nice.
just the nicest team, and you know, I wish them every success. I mean, for a while I was kind of jealous of their success, because we were sucking pretty bad. And you know, they're like sitting back drinking ices from
Jim and-
from Jim and Gary, and you know, we're sweating and bloody and covered with dirt.
Yeah.
You know, and no, I really like the robot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the robot's awesome. It's honestly a lot more convenient that they have the blade mounted on their frame. That definitely lets them put a lot more weight into it. And I did fight them at RoboGames, so I thought this would be kind of good to show
Oh,
with
wow.
like King Crab. So they bent this inch thick AR 500. It's really, really bent, and it took like an entire day to get off the robot.
I forgot
But,
about
yeah, no, they hit really hard. They're really nice, but I was just happy we were able to tap out at RoboGames, because
that. They really hard, but they do it nicely.
yeah, yeah.
but that thing's legit.
Nice.
It hits really good. It drives really good. It lifts.
Yeah.
It does it
No,
all.
I think they'll probably have, I mean, they're definitely in next season for sure.
Yeah.
But I would think they're probably going to have some newfound confidence, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm considering like how well they did in their fights at BattleBots, you know, how well they did at RoboGames. So yeah, I think no one is going to discount them for sure.
Yeah.
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 And then Ripperoni was my other favorite new bot
Yeah.
this year. It was just, they're so crazy fun, that team, and what an awesome bot. You look at it and you just think, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous. I mean, it's really, it's beautiful, and it's just, the theme is so fun, and we were
Yeah.
rooting for them the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Yes, the legend of Federico Amore will live on.
hilarious.
Well,
Everybody was chanting pizza, pizza.
Yes. I mean, obviously we still have the one more episode to go in the season to find out how it all plays out. But I mean, honestly, like for me, this has been one of the most fun seasons of BattleBots that I've seen. And just like lots of hope for the future with a lot of these different designs, and just the way that the robots are evolving and performing. I mean, I think it's great.
Might have been fun for you.
Well, I didn't have to do anything other than just like hang out and talk to people. So.
It was a learning experience.
It was,
Yes.
yeah.
the main thing I
Totally
learned
agree.
is that we should have had a lot more kids, because we need a bigger team. I mean, seriously, it's, you know, we're one of the smallest teams, and you know, we can handle it, but barely, and we had friends come and help, Tyler and
Greg Gibson,
and
shout out to
Greg
Greg
Gibson, Yeti, the legendary Yeti. Greg
my God,
Gibson,
huge shout
he
out.
was here in the shop constantly.
Mhm.
Just doing amazing work and great to be around, and he really helped out. And Tyler, our friend Tyler, he came to the taping, and Jason came in when he could, and he's balancing school, and school's the most important thing by far. So but I am in awe of the teams that can get 6 to 10 competent people who not only help build the robot but are able to be there at filming for the complete period of time. That kind of dedication and love and just logistics is just really, really something when you really think about it. I mean, because filming for 16 days is one thing, but building a robot with a team and having them integrate and then be able to be there
for that
time is extremely hard to do, and I salute them.
And Jason, you weren't just juggling BattleBots and school. Jason was also helping us a lot with Destructathon bots. So that was his project. And that took a lot of time.
And he flew in a couple times to BattleBots. At least a couple times, right?
I was there for all the fights we won.
Good luck.
But it's definitely a lot to balance. I'm definitely thankful we could do it and that like flights are like possible. But it's definitely a lot, especially with the show bots on top of it. The Destructathon was a huge other aspect of the whole crazy thing.
Because like for the build of Whiplash for last season, for I'd say a good 70% of the build, it was just me by myself. Whereas they were working on Destructathon. I built most of the robot myself, and then like the last few weeks to a month, they kind of jumped on and we did all hands on deck. But it was like I'd say it was very tough with the Destructathon.
And honestly, the year before that really kind of prepared us for that, just with having Defender and Whiplash, because that whole year before it was pretty much Matthew doing all the design work, and then like my dad helping out, like obviously for a lot of it, but I mean it really kind of just taught us how to like work on our own projects and be able to like just do so much by ourselves.
And Jeff was so desperate with needing help for Destructathon, he actually had me working on the bots.
He was.
He doesn't let me near them.
It's not pretty, but it's beautiful. But the wrench stuff it's a mess. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I have a mini engineer that I might be able to loan you in a couple of years. So
Send her.
She's still on Legos right now. So
that's okay.
Fine. So are we.
Close enough.
Close
I wish
enough.
we were.
The good old days. Cherish these moments.
Yes, exactly. But so lots of exciting stuff coming up. Obviously if you're watching the show, if you haven't subscribed already, please do. And like and comment and share and all of that stuff. And of course keep supporting Combat Robotics. It's just a great community and we just need to keep growing it. So
and you've been such a nice addition.
You're great. So, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for all that.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. And just, everybody keep on watching and look out for the finale very soon.